There is a particular kind of quiet on the waterfront at Eden, on the New South Wales south coast, just before the trawlers go out. The harbor sits inside a natural bay at the edge of Twofold Bay, where the water between the dock pilings is dark green, the color of deep moss. Old timber pylons run along the wharf in rows, worn smooth at the waterline. The fishing vessels tied there sit low and heavy. They smell of diesel and cold brine. Pelicans stand on the mooring posts with the patience of things that have waited a long time and expect to wait longer. Above the harbor, the headland drops into open sea, and beyond the headland the water shifts from green to blue to the kind of dark that has no bottom you can see into. Eden has been a working fishing town for more than 150 years. Before the trawlers there were whalers, and before that there were the Yuin people, who understood what lived in these waters long before anyone else began cataloging it. The fishermen who work out of Eden now, and out of Merimbula and Ulladulla, and Port Welshpool, and the ports across the Tasman on the New Zealand side, at Nelson and Greymouth and Bluff, carry with them a knowledge that does not appear in visitor literature and is not advertised. They know what is out there. They have built their habits around it. Where they put their hands, how they step off the bow into the water, which depths they work and which ones they leave to whatever uses them. The Tasman Sea sits between the east coast of Australia and the western coast of New Zealand, covering just over 1,300,000 square miles of water. In the deep canyon systems east of Tasmania and along the Zealandia continental shelf, the seafloor drops below 3 miles. Most of that depth has never been directly observed. What has been pulled from it, or what has surfaced alive in trawl nets that were not designed to catch it, gives experienced fishermen a reasonable working picture of what they are moving over every time a boat clears the harbor mouth. But that working picture is built from the surface looking down, and the surface, on a calm April morning with seabirds working the wake, can look almost peaceful. That is a kind of camouflage. The Tasman Sea wears it well. This list was not built from attack statistics, though some exist for a few of these animals. It was not ranked by size alone, though some of what follows is very large. The creatures here were chosen and ordered by one specific measure: the deliberate, reasoned distance that experienced Tasman Sea fishermen and divers keep from them, and the explanations they give when asked why. There are 6. The 6th will not surprise you. What the first one is will probably stay with you. If you find yourself watching all 6, subscribe. This channel covers the animals that do not appear in the brochures. And if you fish these waters, or if you grew up near them, drop a comment. Tell me which stretch of this coast you are watching from. Number 6. The broadnose seven-gill shark. Most people who hear the word shark carry the same image: the white underside, the crescent tail, the sloped snout that has appeared in every documentary film made about the ocean since the 1970s. The broadnose seven-gill is not that animal. Notorhynchus sepedianus belongs to a family whose basic architecture predates modern shark lineages by more than 150 million years. Most sharks have 5 gill slits on each side of the head. The seven-gill has 7, a structural feature found in species from Jurassic-era seas that formed before the Tasman basin existed in its current configuration. When you see a broadnose seven-gill in the water, you are looking at something whose essential body plan has not meaningfully changed since before most current ocean ecosystems took their present shape. Adults reach 8 to 9 feet in length across the continental shelf zones of the Tasman Sea. Confirmed specimens around the Bay of Plenty in New Zealand and in the waters south of Bass Strait have exceeded 10 feet. They inhabit the kelp bed drop-offs and shelf edge zones along the full length of the Tasman, from the colder waters near the Snowy River Delta down through Bass Strait and across to the northern coast of New Zealand's South Island. They hunt cooperatively. That phrase appears in the marine biology literature without much drama. In practice, it means that a group of broadnose sevengills in pursuit of prey will coordinate their movements the way that animals with developed social cognition do, rotating into and out of pursuit positions, working in sequence, separating individual prey from groups before closing. Researchers studying the Hauraki Gulf documented a coordinated group of 9 sevengills pursuing a school of smaller sharks over a period of approximately 3 hours. Methodical, patient, not rushing. In the winter of 2015, a professional abalone diver working a reef stretch south of Narooma on the New South Wales coast surfaced after 8 minutes and told the boat operator he was done for the day. The dive camera footage reviewed afterward showed 4 sevengills circling his position at approximately 30 feet below the surface, moving in the slow, wide arc pattern that divers with long Tasman experience recognize as the behavior that comes before a decision. The diver had worked those reefs for 22 years. He went home. He came back the following week. Number 6 is the one that does not telegraph its intentions. What broadnose sevengills create in fishermen who know them is not terror. It is the specific form of attention you develop around something patient and intelligent in a space where you are, without ambiguity, the visitor. Number 5. The stonefish. The stonefish is not dramatic. That is precisely the problem. Sinensea horrida and its close relative Sinensea verrucosa are both documented in Tasman Sea coastal waters, with the highest concentrations in the northern New South Wales reef zones, around the Solitary Islands, and in the lower reef systems of the southern Great Barrier Reef. Adults reach about 16 inches in length. They are brown and gray and mottled, with patches that match the color and texture of encrusted reef rock, with a consistency that researchers have described, without apparent irony, as nearly perfect passive camouflage. The fish settles onto the seafloor and holds still, sometimes for several hours, sometimes for multiple days without moving. The stonefish is the most venomous fish currently known to science. Its dorsal fin carries 13 spines. Each spine connects to a dedicated venom gland. The compound those glands produce, a protein complex called verrucotoxin, targets cardiac and neuromuscular tissue simultaneously. Step on a stonefish in shallow water, and the pain registers almost at once, not gradually. Emergency physicians at hospitals along the New South Wales coast who have treated stonefish envenomations describe patient presentations that make most other marine animal venom cases look manageable by comparison. Survivors describe the pain as unlike anything else they have experienced, without a close reference point. The antivenom was not developed until 1964. Before that date, a barefoot step onto the wrong piece of reef in northern Tasman waters was, depending on depth of envenomation and distance from medical care, frequently fatal. What concerns Tasman sea fishermen specifically is not the venom in isolation. It is the stillness. A stonefish does not retreat when a fishing vessel anchors over a reef flat. It does not move when a craypot drops near it. Researchers monitoring reef systems around the Solitary Islands documented individual stonefish holding a position smaller than 1 square meter for periods exceeding 2 weeks, motionless, visually indistinguishable from the surrounding substrate. Commercial fishermen who pull traps and pots in the shallow reef zones wear thick rubber-soled boots rated for puncture resistance. They have for a long time. Not for warmth. Not for grip on wet decks, though that matters too. Because what looks like a patch of reef overgrown with coralline algae and encrusting sponge occasionally has 13 spines in it. And you will not see it from the side of a boat looking down into the water. You will only know it was there afterward. The first 2 on this list are animals that most people who live near either coast have at least heard of. The next four are the ones that experienced commercial fishermen and deep water operators in the Tasman discuss specifically when they talk about the water itself rather than the catch. If you have stayed this far, subscribe. What comes next is the territory most people do not think about when they look at this sea from the shore. Number 4. The Goblin Shark. Mitsukarina Ostoni was formally described by the British ichthyologist David Starr Jordan in 1898 from a specimen obtained off Yokohama, Japan. For most of the 20th century, the species occupied a strange position in scientific literature. It was documented. It was clearly alive and reproducing, since specimens turned up occasionally in deep water trawl nets across several ocean basins. But it was so rarely encountered that for decades, systematic understanding of how it lived, where it concentrated, and what it hunted was built almost entirely from dead bodies pulled up accidentally in gear designed for something else. In April of 2003, a Japanese commercial trawler working deep water approximately 250 nautical miles south-southeast of the New South Wales coast brought a live goblin shark to the surface in a bottom trawl at a depth of around 2,900 feet. Video recorded on the vessel's deck before the animal expired shows something that does not match any shark most people carry in their mental image of the word. The snout extends forward from the head as a long, flat blade, considerably wider than it is thick, projecting well ahead of the eyes. The skin is pinkish-gray, translucent along the flanks. Under deck lighting, you can see the vascular network beneath the surface tissue in the areas near the fins. The jaw, at rest, is held inside the body. When the goblin shark strikes, the jaw extends. It projects outward and downward in a movement called jaw protrusion, covering a distance roughly equal to 8 to 9% of the animal's total body length in under 300 milliseconds. Nothing else currently alive in the Tasman does this. Nothing currently alive anywhere does it in precisely the same way. Goblin sharks inhabit depths between 800 and 4,000 feet in the Tasman Sea, concentrated in the submarine canyon systems east of Tasmania and along the deeper margins of the Zealandia Plateau. They do not surface. They do not interact with fishing vessels the way coastal and shelf-edge sharks do. The reason experienced deep water trawl fishermen on both sides of the Tasman include them in conversations about what they avoid is navigational rather than directly predatory. When goblin sharks begin appearing in trawl nets with any regularity, it indicates that the gear is operating in depths and terrain that experienced operators prefer not to be in. Not because goblin sharks attack fishing vessels, because of what their presence marks. The goblin shark tells you where you are. When you start pulling them, you are somewhere worth thinking twice about. Number 3. The colossal squid. Not the giant squid, though that species, Architeuthis dux, also inhabits the deeper Tasman zones and has been documented in New Zealand waters across multiple surveys. The colossal squid, Mesonychoteuthis hamiltoni, is a different and substantially heavier animal. It was not formally identified as a distinct species until 1925, when partial remains were recovered from inside sperm whales caught in the Southern Ocean south of the Tasman. The largest confirmed complete specimen was recovered on the 22nd of February of 2007 by the New Zealand commercial fishing vessel San Aspiring, operating in waters approximately 180 nautical miles north of Antarctica, at the outer edge of what would broadly be considered the southern Tasman and subantarctic zone. That animal, brought to the surface alive and measured after it expired on deck, was 33 feet from mantle tip to tentacle end. It weighed 1,091 pounds. It remains the heaviest invertebrate ever formally documented and measured by science. The eyes of a colossal squid are the largest eyes of any animal currently alive on Earth. Each eye measures approximately 11 inches in diameter. They contain a photoreceptive structure built for near-total darkness, adapted to detect movement at the light levels present below 1,500 feet of water. 11 inches. The diameter of a large dinner plate, pointed upward in the dark water, looking for the silhouette of movement against whatever faint ambient light filters down from above. Most of what marine scientists understand about how colossal squid behave in their natural environment comes not from direct observation, but from examining sperm whales. Sperm whales hunt colossal squid regularly in the deep zones of the southern Tasman and beyond. The evidence is in the scar tissue. The suckers on colossal squid tentacles are lined with sharp hooks, and those hooks leave distinctive circular scars on whale skin that persist for years after the encounter. Researchers at the National Institute of Water and Atmospheric Research in Wellington have catalogued sperm whale specimens bearing sucker scar clusters consistent with encounters at depths between 2,000 and 6,000 feet below the surface of the Tasman Sea and the waters south of it. In 1978, a Soviet deep-water research vessel working the southern Tasman zone recovered fragmentary colossal squid remains in a trawl. Based on the dimensions of the mantle sections retrieved, the animal they represented was estimated to have exceeded 45 feet in total length. That figure has never been confirmed by a complete specimen. It may never be. Not enough to confirm, not enough to dismiss. What experienced deep-water fishermen find difficult about the colossal squid is not the possibility of direct encounter. It is the implication. Something of that mass, at those depths, doing things that can only be inferred from the scars left on the skin of another large animal. Below the reach of standard fishing gear, below the range of anything a working boat can observe directly. The evidence that it is there comes up in nets occasionally. What it does when it is not in nets stays where it is. Number 2. The blue-ringed octopus. 2 species are found with regularity in the coastal Tasman zone. Hapalochlaena maculosa, the southern blue-ringed octopus, is distributed across the southern New South Wales and Victorian coastlines, in the rock pools, tide pools, and shallow reef structures that fishermen and recreational users move through constantly throughout the warmer months. Hapalochlaena lunulata, the greater blue-ringed octopus, occurs in the warmer northern portions of the range. Neither is large. The southern species, the one most commonly encountered in the temperate Tasman coastal zone, has a mantle approximately the size of a golf ball, with arms extending to 5 inches or so in total reach. At rest, the animal is a dull reddish brown with faint mottled markings. It settles into the texture of sand and rock and looks unremarkable. It looks like something you would pick up out of curiosity. When the animal is stressed, the rings change. Iridescent blue, arranged across the mantle and arms in patterns that vary slightly between individuals, pulsing visibly at a rate of 2 to 3 flashes per second. They are not subtle. They are a warning display that is entirely visible to anyone looking at the animal directly. The difficulty is that most people who encounter a blue-ringed octopus in a tide pool do not know what the blue rings mean until after they have already made contact. The toxin involved is tetrodotoxin, produced in the animal's salivary glands and delivered through a bite. The bite is frequently not felt at the time of contact. Victims in documented cases describe the sensation as minor, less significant than a wasp sting, sometimes as nothing they consciously registered at all. Tetrodotoxin blocks sodium channel function in nerve cell membranes. The result is a progressive paralysis that moves upward through the body and typically reaches the respiratory muscles within 15 to 30 minutes of envenomation. There is no antivenom. The clinical treatment is mechanical or manual ventilation, breathing for the patient until the toxin is metabolized by the body. This takes between 4 and 8 hours. Without immediate intervention, the patient dies of respiratory failure, not from the toxin itself, but from the inability to breathe, In February of 2006, a young man at a beach south of Sydney lifted a small octopus from a rock pool and held it on his forearm while a friend took a photograph. He did not notice being bitten. Approximately 20 minutes later, standing in the car park above the beach, he told his friend he could not feel his legs. Emergency services arrived. He received manual ventilation in the ambulance. He survived. The octopus weighed less than 30 grams. Fishermen who have worked the Tasman coast for a number of years do not put their bare hands into rock pools without looking carefully first. They do not move kelp or weed by hand when pulling traps from shallow reef ground. They know that a blue-ringed octopus can fit inside a crevice, inside a shell, inside a boot left on a boat deck, inside essentially any cavity, with enough room for a body the size of a golf ball, and they know that the thing you need to watch for may not announce itself until after the question has already been decided. Number 1. The Irukandji jellyfish. A clear bell, approximately the size of a thumbnail. 4 trailing tentacles, ranging from a few centimeters to just over a meter in length, nearly transparent. In open water, in normal surface light, against the glare of the Tasman on a summer afternoon, you cannot see it. Carukia barnesi was formally identified and described as a distinct species in 1964 by Dr. Jack Barnes, a Queensland physician who had been investigating a cluster of unexplained severe envenomations in swimmers at far north Queensland beaches. Barnes identified a small jellyfish as the probable cause, and confirmed this by the following method. He collected a specimen from shallow water near cairns, allowed it to sting his own forearm, then arranged for the same jellyfish to sting a surf lifeguard and his 14-year-old son, to verify that the symptom progression he had documented in himself was consistent and reproducible across different individuals. All 3 survived. Barnes published his findings. The species was named after him. The Irukandji is found historically in the warmer coastal waters between Cairns and the Whitsunday Islands, in the northern reaches of the Queensland coast, well above the traditional Tasman zone. Over the past 2 decades, as ocean surface temperatures in the northern Tasman and Coral Sea have measurably increased, documented Irukandji encounters have extended progressively south. Researchers monitoring the species' distribution have confirmed sightings reaching the Sunshine Coast, and during peak summer months with elevated water temperatures, further south still, into waters that a generation of Queensland fishermen understood as outside the range of this animal. The sting, at the moment of contact, is frequently unremarkable. A small red mark, mild local burning. Some people report no sensation at all at the moment of envenomation. Commercial and recreational fishermen working the northern Tasman during summer months have reported being stung and continuing to work their lines for 30 to 45 minutes before they noticed any meaningful change in how they felt. Then, the change comes. Severe cramping pain develops in the lower back. Cramps spread through the arms and legs simultaneously. The skin surface begins to burn. Heart rate increases. Blood pressure climbs. In serious presentations documented in Queensland hospitals, attending physicians have observed blood pressure readings consistent with acute hypertensive crisis. In some cases, fluid accumulates in the lung tissue. In others, the heart muscle itself is temporarily weakened, a condition known as cardiomyopathy, which in several documented cases has been severe enough to require immediate cardiac intervention in emergency settings. And then there is a symptom that appears across the medical case literature and language that is notably consistent across multiple treating physicians and multiple case reports spanning more than 20 years of published research. Patients who have received a significant Irukandji envenomation frequently report, in addition to the physical symptoms, a specific and overwhelming conviction that they are about to die. Not anxiety, in the ordinary clinical sense. Not confusion. A calm, certain knowledge, as patients consistently describe it, that death is near and unavoidable. In a number of documented cases, patients told the medical staff treating them that they knew they were going to die and would prefer it to happen quickly. This is not panic. Panicking patients do not ask physicians to make death faster. This is something the medical literature has struggled to categorize precisely, and what emergency physicians in Queensland who have seen multiple Irukandji cases simply describe as the signature of a serious sting. Physician Peter Fenner and colleagues published a case series covering 27 Irukandji stings treated at Queensland hospitals over a 4-year period, ending in the early 2000s. 2 patients in that series died. Both deaths resulted from intracranial hemorrhage caused by the extreme blood pressure surge the venom produces. The remaining 25 patients recovered. The majority reported the psychological presentation during the acute phase of their symptoms. The size of a thumbnail. Transparent in open water. A sting that may go completely unfelt. Symptoms that develop between 20 and 45 minutes after contact, often far enough from shore, or far enough into a working day, that the connection between the small red mark on the wrist and the severe pain in the lower back is not immediately made. Commercial fishermen who work the northern Tasman coast know the season. October through May. They check the water temperature reports. On calm mornings with low surface chop, they know how to look for the faint dome of the bell in the surface layer when the light angle is right. They know that the animal responsible for what they avoid is one that most of them have never seen clearly. And they know that by the time they feel it, the next hour is already underway. The most feared creature in the Tasman Sea, by the people who have spent the most years in it, is the one you cannot see coming. Stand on the waterfront at Eden again. The pelicans are where they were. The trawlers sit low in the harbor, the same rust streaks along the same hull plates. The water at the channel entrance is green, then blue toward the headland, then the specific dark that belongs to open water with nothing underneath it that you can easily describe. The fishermen who go out from this harbor do not talk much about what is in the water. After enough time on these boats, talking about it is less useful than building the habits that let you keep working. Where you put your hands. How you move in the shallows. What you leave alone. The knowledge is practical, and it is passed on in practical terms between people who need it to be accurate. The Tasman Sea has been commercially fished for more than 150 years. Marine surveys of its deepest zones have covered a fraction of its total area. New species are formally described from Tasman waters every year, most of them without any public attention at all. So here is what this list is really about. Not fear. It is about the gap between how the water looks from the harbor wall and what experienced people understand about what moves through it beneath the surface. The fishermen who keep the distances they keep do so for reasons that took years to accumulate. The question is not whether those reasons are justified. The question is, how much of what justifies them we have not yet put a